Welcome to episode 1 of VYPE Recruit Spotlight. I am your host for this new venture, Joshua Waslosik, or as a lot of people call me, Wac, and I am joined with what we're going to call our recruit experts, if you will, Will Turboff and Jackson DePasquale. If I said that wrong, I'm sorry, Jackson.
Right.
There you go. Let's turn it over to you guys first. I want to, as I do with all my shows, I like to just get a track of how y'all are doing each day. So, Will, how are you doing today, man?
Great. I mean, first episode, we've got a big guest on in Roy Thomas Jenkins. Super excited for this show, and I think we should go ahead and get into it, Jackson.
Yeah, man. Excited for this show. We're going to be talking to a lot of great recruits around the area. We're going to be talking to a lot of recruiting's blowing back up in the state of Texas, and it's going to be fun.
So, and before we do all that, of course, we want to let you know what this show is, right? Of course, the name is Recruit Spotlight. So, as you could imagine, we're going to be talking about Texas high school recruits, not necessarily just football, baseball, softball, basketball, whatever it may be. We're going to be talking about that. And we're just going to be talking to you about some of the news across the state of Texas when it comes to recruits. We're also going to try and interview some recruits every week, maybe bring in some recruiting experts or maybe some coaches that are recruiting coordinators at their high schools to kind of give you an insight of what they do to get these recruits ready for the next level. And of course, we're also going to have our final segment of the show, kind of our fun segment of the show, which is just recruits that are under the radar that you should be paying attention to for one reason or another. They're not getting the love they deserve. So that's going to be the format of the show, guys, but let's get into it. Of course, our first segment is just any recruiting news across the state, and I'll turn it over to you first. What is one thing, one piece of news across the state that's happened recently? I think the biggest one, and that we know, is Harold Perkins. So I'll kind of let you two talk about that, but I'll give you the chance to speak first. Go ahead and break down this recruiting news across the state for us.
Yeah, we're in the last week of January, and 2 out of the top 3 athletes in the state of Texas are uncommitted. Not unsigned, they're uncommitted. Harold Perkins from Cy Park recently decommitted from Texas A&M, and Devon Campbell from Arlington Bowie. He is between UT and OU right now, but let's start with Harold Perkins, because as of Thursday, he has listed a new top 3, which is Texas A&M, LSU, and Florida. He's taken visits to all those places. What seems to be a lifelong Florida and LSU fan. Jackson, I'm going to go ahead and ask you, as an A&M fan, how, did you see this coming, or were you kind of taken aback by Perkins decommitting?
Honestly, as an Aggie, watching his commitment, I had a feeling in my gut that he was going to decommit, maybe kind of draw that attention back to him, because I feel like as a big-time recruit, once you commit, people kind of keep their eyes off of you. I think he wants the attention on him going into signing day. I think that visit to Florida was really influential on him. And I think that if he doesn't decide to go back to A&M, I think Florida is the real choice here. He just went on the visit. He was there with a 5-star safety, Kamari Wilson, out of IMG. He had a great time, was posting all over his social media. I think that even though he dropped his top 3, put LSU in there as a kid from Louisiana, I feel like it's really between Florida and A&M. And with A&M's defensive staff going on an in-home visit this week, it's going to be really tight down the wire, and it's going to be one to watch this week.
An interesting question I have for you guys in this regard is, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Do you think maybe this is a little bit of the NIL game at work, him gaming the system, maybe trying to get another deal or two from maybe A&M, for example? Jackson, what do you think on that?
I think it could be that, but I think really for him it's going to be playing time. NIL is going to come wherever he comes or wherever he goes to. I really do think it's going to be whatever's the best fit for him, whatever's going to get him out in 3 years and let him go to the pros. I do think NIL is starting to play a factor, though, in a lot of these recruits' decisions. So if it is NIL, we might see more of that happening in the near future.
Well, what about you? I want to get your perspective on this NIL situation.
Yeah, the money will come wherever he goes. Perkins is a star. Not just on the field, but he's quite the character. We've seen it over the last few months. He does all the taunting on social media. He, was not shy. At the Under Armour All-American game, they asked him, "Are you fully committed?" He said, "No, I think I'm going to take some more visits." He was up front. He put the hat on. He said, "I'm not 100%." He He likes the lights, and there's nothing wrong with that because there's going to be a whole lot of it at the next level. When we're talking about his commitment, sorry, Jackson, I think he's down to LSU and Florida. I think those were the two that he was looking at all along. When it all shook up at Florida, I think a lot of things changed there. But I think Florida's headed in the right direction here.
Now, Jackson, I got to ask you because you are the A&M aficionado. For those that don't know, Jackson, huge A&M guy. I mean, he'll talk A&M all day. Does this drop them from the highest graded class ever? Because they were the highest graded class ever. Do you know if this drops them or not?
I don't think it does because actually 2 recruits just got bumped up to 5 stars this previous week. Chris Marshall from Fort Bend Marshall and a cornerback from Georgia. I can't exactly remember his full name, but his last name is Kilgrew. He got bumped up to a 5-star this week as well. So as of right now, with what we've got, we have 7 5-stars, which I think is the most out of any class this year. Even if we lose Perkins, we still have a chance of getting Shamar Stewart from Florida. So I'm not too worried about us not having the greatest class ever. But regardless, Texas A&M did a fantastic job recruiting this year, especially in Houston and the state of Texas.
That they did. Let's move on to Campbell real quick. I know you had brought him up. Do you get a sense of which way he may be leaning one way or another? I know, as we know, Texas has that kind of NIL pancake deal going on there. What do you think, Will? What's your gut telling you about Campbell?
Yeah, with all due respect to this UT board that's put together the pancake NIL deal, Devon Campbell will be making a whole lot more than $50,000 a year. This is one of the best offensive linemen in the country, one of the best players in the country. I think the Longhorns have had him since day one. I think Sark has developed a great relationship with him. He's down to Texas and Oklahoma. I just don't see any way that he doesn't end up in the 40 acres.
Jackson, would you agree with that situation, our statement there?
I think he's been a Longhorn basically most of his recruitment. I was shocked he didn't sign early. With OU kind of having their staff together now, I wouldn't be shocked if you see him go to OU. But at the same time, I feel like he's bought in on Texas. I feel like he is going to be a Texas Longhorn at the end of the day. But don't sleep on the fact that he might go to OU with OU already building back up this program with this new staff of the Venables.
Yeah, man. I'm just look. As you know, Jackson's the A&M. I'm the Longhorn. Well, it's a Longhorn too, to some respect. I mean, it's down to UT and Nebraska for Will for his college of choice. Yeah, man. It just think if the lineman class we get right now in 2 or 3 years, man, that could be interesting for UT. Any other news around the state before we move on to our interview segment? Will, I'll jump to you real quick and then to Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, the interview we've got coming up right now with Thomas Jenkins, we have some big news in here about one of the schools we just talked about, so I think we should go and send it to that.
All right. Well, Jackson, I'm sorry to not give you the chance, but there you go. Let's jump to that interview let's go ahead and jump to that interview with him right now.
We spotlight the next generation of top recruits. Who better to start off this series than 2025 Belmont Kelly Catholic quarterback Thomas Jenkins. Roy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you. I got a chance to meet you just about a month ago at a 7-on-7 tryout, and your recruitment has really taken off since then. You told me at the time that you had interest from some huge programs. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But I mentioned Beaumont Kelly Catholic. That's not a school that we talk about a whole lot in the recruiting scene and to be honest, at all here at VYPE. So you're playing in TAPS, which is sometimes where you don't get the most eyes. How do you think that's going to impact your recruitment, if at all?
Yeah. I mean, you looking at the past years of like Grant Gunnell, Booby Curry, some of those kids have gone to St. Pius and TAPS. You go look at Parish Episcopal in Dallas, they're in TAPS. I mean, there's some pretty big recruiting schools in TAPS, but I mean Kelly's probably not the biggest school. It definitely might maybe limit your opportunities, but it's still a great school. But the camps really help, to be honest with you. I mean, it might not be like the biggest school, but the camps definitely really help if you're going to those in your recruitment.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talked early on, you said, this is I'm locked in with this team,
Yeah.
and we know that you're gonna do what you do there, and you've done it really well. I mean, as a freshman, to have schools like Clemson and Georgia, and now Texas A&M involved in your recruiting process is really incredible. And at what point did you really realize that this was going to start up so early on?
Well, I started playing football like 4th grade, and I've always really had. I mean, I guess I kind of had a talent for it, and played middle school. Started my 7th grade year on the for the middle school team, and started 7th and 8th grade year. Did pretty good, and I went the first camp I went to was 7th grade year. Yeah, I got my name. I wasn't like the biggest deal. I went to, or 8th grade around March time, I went to FBU, and that's when things really took off. I got Gatorade player there, got a national combine invite to the San Antonio one the next day. And that's what really kind of got it going. And in the summer, I went to some college camps, and I threw good for the coaches. And the last one I went to for the summer was University of Houston. And Coach Dawson, the offensive coordinator, didn't know who I was, like saw me right when I got there. And I started throwing for him, and he's like, "What class are you?" I said, "I'm a 2025 coming in freshman." He said, "That's incredible." And he liked it. Liked how I threw a lot. And he ended up offering me a scholarship at the end of the camp just from throwing that day. So that's really kind of got it going. And then later that in the summer, around like June or July, I can't remember, I got invited to the FBU Top Gun Naples, and I got a Adidas Freshman All-American invite, which is the top 60 freshmen in the country. And that was a big honor. And A&M stopped by 2 days ago, and they offered me. So it's kind of getting going. And I visited Georgia and Clemson, so there's definitely some schools that are interested in me. So it's been pretty fun.
Yeah, we know how crazy this world is. There's so many moving parts. You never know when that offer is going to come, or that school's not going to be interested anymore. Who's been guiding you through all of this in the last few months?
I'd say definitely my parents and my head coach. They kind of and definitely like the coaches that have been recruiting me, Coach Dawson and just like all the coaches. The advice I get from my parents, you just kind of got to know where your feet are, and just don't get ahead of yourself. The main thing.
Yeah, I can imagine it's really easy to let it get to your head when you're at these programs. I mean, you're talking about Georgia, who just won a national championship. Mm-hmm. Clemson, who's done so, within the last 5 years, they're producing first-round quarterbacks all the time. For people, which is just about everyone watching this show, take us through what a visit to one of those schools looked like.
When you get there, you're really in awe, because everything nowadays, it's every big program, it's just amazing, like what they do there and how much money these programs have, and the facilities and all the new technology that they have. It's pretty crazy, because like when you're younger, like you dream about going to play at these big universities and being on TV. So it's pretty insane just going to the university and possibly playing there in front of 100,000 people. It's pretty insane. Like all the facilities mainly, and it's pretty crazy.
Out of the places you visited so far, have any just blown you away more than the others, or is it kind of the same?
They're all kind of the same. A&M yesterday, they said they're doing a $160 million renovation, so they're about to step theirs up. Clemson was really nice. Houston's facilities are really nice. But Georgia, I mean, theirs were pretty crazy. But they're all incredible.
Yes, we've mentioned about 4 schools right now. I know Mississippi State is also involved. Are there any schools that we haven't mentioned that are in the process right now?
Yes, sir. University of Texas is coming by tomorrow, so we'll see. I'll talk to them. I've had Central Michigan come by. Duke has invited me on a visit, in University of Arkansas.
Well, we know that Wac, one of our members on the show, will be very excited that the Longhorns are stopping by. But Texas A&M, we already talked about that. Jackson, the third member, a huge fan, now an alum. Detail what that process was like, because you said they stopped by a couple days ago, and then you took that visit. So what was the relationship? How did that start out, and then when did you take that visit?
This summer I went to the A&M camp for Coach Dickey, and I talked to him after the camp. But since the underclassmen recruiting, it gets a little complicated because you can't really talk to these coaches. But I was kind of on the radar, and I kind of have been with talked to Coach Heward, but they like how I threw, and I've kind of been on the radar. But they stopped by and talked to my coach and everything, and later that night I called Coach Dickey, and he ended up giving me a scholarship. So it was pretty crazy, but definitely was pretty awesome. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a picture surfaced online of you with Johnny Manziel.
Yeah.
So, you have one parent that went to Texas A&M. You've got another that went to the University of Texas. Do you have a dream offer anywhere? It doesn't have to be those two, but is that it?
I mean, those two schools are definitely up there in my choices. I mean, definitely because my parents that went there, and both the universities are close to home. But I mean, any university is an opportunity. So, I mean, I can't say anything about that. But, I mean, any school would be a dream. Like I said, any school would be a dream.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got a whole lot of time to decide what that dream school is, really where you see yourself. And, by the time that you're out of there, it'll be almost the end of the decade. So we'll obviously keep monitoring you for the next few years. But let's talk about right now. You're playing baseball. We're doing this interview late at night because you've got baseball season going on, and we're talking about you as this huge football recruit. What's that like, managing playing baseball and doing what you're doing right now with football?
My baseball coach, he played in the major league, and he played at Texas A&M in college. So, I mean, he really understands the recruiting process, and some games I might have to miss to go to camps and everything, or 7-on-7 tournaments. So he really supports all that recruiting stuff because he's been there. But, I mean, it's definitely baseball season and 7-on-7 and camps and all that. I mean, it's definitely a busy schedule you got to keep up with, but at the end of the day, I mean, he really helps me manage it, and all the coaches at Kelly. So
there you go. We'll end with a couple fun ones right here. First of all, who's a guy, probably, I'm sure we'll get a quarterback as the answer, a guy at the high school or college level that you really look up to?
Two of my Trevor Lawrence has been, I really admire him, but right now in college, I really like Jackson Dart and what he's done, and Matt Corral. I think those are two really good guys, and they play elite football. So, I mean, yeah, probably those two guys.
Where do you think Dart's going?
You know what? I think he's a big fan of Lane Kiffin, so I think he's going to the SIP, but we'll see. Who knows?
You may have that option pretty soon too. We'll just have to see. Roy, I'm sure I'll see you soon at camps, at 7-on-7 events in the next few months. It was great to have you. Hopefully we get to talk soon.
I really appreciate it for having me. Thank you.
All right. Well, that was Will's interview with Roy Thomas Jenkins from Beaumont Kelly, class of 2025, and Jackson, you were talking a little bit before the show that he, as we know, he's got that offer from Texas A&M and Jimbo already, and you're saying, Jimbo just doesn't offer to offer that, like he sees something in him. You talk a little bit more about that, Jackson.
So typically, I mean, Jimbo is the quarterback guru when you really think about it. He's coached great quarterbacks that have gone off into the NFL, whether they've had great careers, whether they've had short stints in the NFL. They go to the NFL, and people trust what he does coaching the quarterback position. So seeing a kid as a freshman get an offer from Jimbo at the quarterback position, he's special. He's a guy that Jimbo watched film on, had conversations with him when he came up for his unofficial visit. So he's definitely going to be a top quarterback in the state, if not the country. If a guy like Jimbo, who is high on his quarterbacks and coaches his quarterbacks hard, offers him as a freshman, he's going to be a kid to look out for.
And Will, I know you talking to him, and one of the things you talked about is just the difficulty of maybe getting noticed at Beaumont Kelly, but that's got to be kind of brightening and encouraging for him to know that at a program like Beaumont Kelly, a private school kind of realm, he's getting those eyes already. Just talk to me a little bit about that real quick.
Yeah, that's something we talked about the first time that I met him at a 7-on-7 event, and I asked him, I said, do you think this is going to be a place that you're going to be able to stick for 4 years? He said, yes. He had the interest before he even got there. And now with interest from, Georgia, Clemson, Mississippi State, he's got a great base. People are going to see that tape from this year. They're going to see it from next year. I mean, he's starting from day one. So this is a guy who already has, 2 huge offers on the table. And by, I say, beginning of 2024, may have the most out of any quarterback in his class. But I do believe a program that is already interested will be the one that he ends up in.
Well, I mean, it kind of speaks to the Houston area where, and the greater Houston area where you have really two freshman kind of QB phenoms, him at Beaumont Kelly, and then you have, of course, the North Shore quarterback. So future's looking bright, or I guess continues to look bright. When does Houston not have the talent? So that is our interview segment. Any tease for us for next week, Will? Or you still turning the waters about who you got lined up?
Yeah, we'll just have to see. There's a couple of guys that are on the radar right now. But nothing official yet. There will be a good one, I promise that.
Well, Will's already mentioned a couple of names that he wants to get on the show, and cannot wait for those. So let's move on to our final segment of the show, and that's our Under the Radar segment. This is going to be a segment where we talk about those recruits that maybe only have 1 or 2 offers at the D1 level tops, maybe don't have any offers at all. So these are the athletes that you should be paying attention to, because they are going to get some offers if you know where you're looking. So, Will, I'll start with you. Give us one under the radar athlete that people should be paying more attention to.
Yeah, David Amador from North Shore. It's hard to believe that he's under the radar. This is a guy that was one of Demetrius Davis's favorite targets, and now one of Caleb Bailey's favorite targets over at North Shore. Had incredible performances throughout the playoffs, obviously against Duncanville in the 6A championship. This is a guy with 1 offer at UTSA. He will be on the up and up. He will not be under the radar for very much longer. Jackson, I know you have a lot to speak to that.
I mean, he's a kid who's been to the Final Four, been in the state game, been in these big games on a team that has built a strong legacy in making it to the state game in North Shore. The fact that the kid only has 1 offer is just shocking. It's shocking because he is a playmaker. He is a game changer when he's on the field, and we saw that in the state championship game this year, catching that game-winning touchdown. So he's definitely going to be a guy that in the future, probably in the next couple of months, will be picking up some big-time offers and will not be being slept on as much as he has been right now.
Jackson, what about another one? Give me one more under-the-radar athlete that you know of that people should be having their eyes on.
Quan X Jr. from Grand Oaks High School. Now, he's only a freshman, but as a freshman, he was first-team All-District in Conroe ISD's district. He was Newcomer of the Year as well, and he's already got offers as of right now from Rutgers and UTSA. Now, while many people think those aren't the best offers, He was in a district with kids like Mabry Matoyer, like Ben Ferguson, like Louis Williams III from Conroe, Jadarius Brown from Willis, and as a freshman came in there and put up at least 123 yards a game. He is going to be a kid to look out for. Will be a kid that in the future will be a top-rated player in the state. Keep an eye out for this kid.
All right. Well, that is our Under the Radar segment. We'll be bringing that to you every week about athletes you should be paying attention to. Before we get out of here, of course, for those that don't know, we also have a Instagram Live we do, if not weekly, we try to do it every week. VYPE Next Gen. And Jackson, tell us who we got coming up here.
So next week on February 1st at 7 o'clock, our special guest for VYPE Next Gen Instagram Live series, episode 4, is none other than Westlake wide receiver Jaden Greathouse, 3-time state champion, going for 4 in a row, had a incredible state game, having 236 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns. And what's the crazy part about this kid is he's a 4-star, but he doesn't really have a lot of offers. Now, granted, his offers are big-time offers. He just picked up an offer from Michigan. He's got offers from, I believe, Will, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he has an offer from Texas. I believe he has an offer from Oregon. He's got some big-time offers, but for some reason, they're not just all rolling in. So it's going to be a great interview. It'll be myself, Matt Malatesta, our chief content editor, and also Jaden Greathouse, of course. Will be a fun time, February 1st at 7 o'clock. Definitely be there.
That's right. And if you didn't check it out yesterday, the show obviously Fridays at noon. You had one. You had one yesterday. Give us a who was it and why should they check it out?
So we had a live with Austin Benini from the Woodlands Christian Academy. He's a kid who might easily be one of the best players in the Houston area. A lot of people just don't look at him because he's a 5'11" point guard, but the kid gets to the hole. He makes baskets in the clutch time. He is a hard-nosed defender. He's he signed to Navy. He's going to Navy. It was a great just interview with a kid who just wasn't getting that recruitment. And finally, when he got it, he's just been balling out. So definitely something y'all will want to watch on our YouTube channel. A great interview with a great kid.
That's right. These VYPE Next Gens are live on Instagram Live, and usually we try to do it the next day, but if not by the next Monday or Tuesday, we'll get them up on our YouTube page so you can check that out. So this has been our first episode of VYPE Recruit Spotlight. Every Fridays at noon, we will be here with you, so breaking down all this recruiting news for you. Until next week, before we get out of here, any last words, any last shout-outs? Jackson, any last shout-outs?
Shout out to all the baseball teams starting the season. Good luck this season. Definitely going to be out at some games this year. Also, to all these kids getting recruited right now, enjoy the process. Have fun with it. It's a great time to just enjoy it with friends and family.
How about you, Will?
Shout out to Jackson Arnold from Denton Geyer for committing to Oklahoma this past week. Shout out to Roy Thomas Jenkins for coming on the show. For Jaden Greathouse next week. I'm really looking forward to that. Pretty sure he's a future Longhorn. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
Hey, maybe you'll be a future Longhorn as well, Will. Maybe not that excited as we know, but hey, this kid right here, Will Turboff, he has a bright future in sports media, let me tell you. Well, thanks again for everyone for tuning in to our first episode of VYPE Recruit Spotlight. We'll be back next Friday at noon. Until then, I've been Wac, that's Will, and Jackson. We'll see you there.